From the Weston A. Price Foundation, welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health.
Well, there's two worlds in livestock. There's the commodity factory farms, and then there's the rest of us. And it's worlds apart. It's completely different. So if you have a factory farm, in other words, confinement livestock, CAFO, confined animal facility, you need all the vaccine in the world and all the chemicals in the world, the antibiotics, because they're living in their own manure. They're eating a GMO, genetically modified diet. They're cram jammed together, and they're under unreal production pressure. You know, you got to bang out a calf every year. You got to have 2 litters of pigs a year. So it's a recipe for disaster. And again, when you eat in a restaurant, you're going to be eating factory farm food, period. I live in a city of millions of people in Minneapolis, and I think there's one farm restaurant here that's the real deal. They serve food from their own farm, and with the exception of like orange juice and coffee, everything, all their produce, they raise all that. They raise the pork, the chicken, the eggs, the dairy products, but the rest of it, you're looking at Cisco truck, basically. And so it really makes eating out difficult and makes travel difficult. I travel mostly to food deserts. I work in the country in rural areas, like for Thousand Hills Cattle Company, where I work. We're aggregators for grass-fed beef, and we have at any given time maybe 60 producers, and these are mostly maybe they sell us 5 head a year. Maybe they sell us, the biggest would be 100 a week. But in that process, we aggregate between 250 and 350 animals a week that are 100% grass-fed. And I have visited every single farm that they're following my instructions. I'm the consulting veterinarian for Thousand Hills. So I get to have boots on the ground. I really get to see that. But boy, is that rare. And it's also rare for any restaurant to take our beef and put it on their menu. We had one restaurant in St. Paul, the Twin City town, and all the beef they served there was Thousand Hills beef. And it was really awesome that you could go in there and relax. You don't have to worry about the beef. And then they tried to do that with the potatoes and the corn and the carrots and the peas and the salad. You know, so we're a long way from where we need to be with restaurant food.
So, Will, we have some listeners who might not quite understand why you're saying it matters. Why does it matter the provenance of the meat on the table in the restaurant or in the grocery store? Why does its provenance matter? Why does it matter if it comes from a concentrated animal feeding operation or a factory farm versus a regenerative farm? What difference does it make in the quality of the meat?
So many answers. Let me count the ways. But let's start with the fact that the number one source of pollution on the planet is what industry? What would you guess?
Well, they say it's the cattle industry.
Well, it's agriculture in general.
Yeah.
Globally, the number one source of pollution is agriculture. So how we produce food for people is a determinant in pollution. So the runoff from a feedlot, they've converted manure, which in our systems is God's gift to farming. Manure is fertility. They've converted that into a toxic waste product that they can't get rid of. And about the only way they've found to get rid of all the manure, because let's say hogs, for example, they live on a slatted floor in a factory farm. So all the poop and urine goes down into a system that washes it into a major manure lagoon. And this is true of most dairies too. All the manure that's in the barn is flushed into a lagoon manure pit. And that's Chernobyl. I mean, it's just really toxic. So when we eat that food, we're supporting more of that. And those people don't have your interest in mind. They are looking at the bottom line. Most are owned by corporate entities. And for the pigs, a classic example is a modern factory farm for pigs where Cargill or ADM or some large corporation, they own the pigs, they own the barns, they own the feed, and the farmer is just a janitor. That's all he gets, just to clean up the mess. And then if he doesn't do it right, he doesn't get paid. So it's a sick system. And I've helped only one that I can recall that was a nasty factory farm for hogs. I just don't work with them. They don't like what I do. They don't follow my directions. And even if they do temporarily, as soon as things get better, they start backing things down. Like, well, we're pampering them, and they use that word derogatively. I use it as like, yeah, I want to pamper my livestock. Why would you not want to pamper your livestock? Well, they don't. So, like with dairies, if they're not losing animals on a daily basis, if there aren't a pile of dead animals every day, they feel like that we got to cut something back, and they do. So this one large dairy hog operation called me because they were getting eaten alive by first they had PRRS, which is a respiratory disease of hogs. Wipe them out. It's just like it's a pandemic for hogs. Well, then they lost them almost everything. Then they recovered, and they had PED, which is another disease of baby piggies. We call it pigs everywhere dead. That's not the real name for it, but it's this episode. So they call me, and it's a father and 4 sons. And so it's 5 families that live off of this operation. Well, they have, at the time I started working with them, 3,000 sows. Now, the sows are living in a crate. They're in a gestation crate, which is just big enough. I've heard it aligned to an airplane seat. Like you're pregnant and you're living in an airplane seat. You can't get out of it.
Wow.
They can't turn around. They can't scratch their butt. They can't do anything. And when I was let in there, I felt sorry for these farmers. They really wanted to break out of this deal, but they were trapped. Mm-hmm. So I said, Matt, okay, I'll try. I'll work with you. I know I can solve your problems. I just don't know if you believe it. So the first thing you do, you go to a chain link fence, and they unlock a big lock. And then you go to another chain link, and then the doors are all locked. So 3 layers of locking. And there are signs like no germs in, no germs out, restricted facility. No access, there's all these signs that you don't associate. You're thinking old McDonald's farm, So it's like a nuclear power plant to get in. So then when you go in, you have to take all your clothes off, and you take a shower, and you have to scrub with a disinfectant soap all over your body, your hair, everything. Then you dry off, and then they put you in a moon suit with boots, with gloves, with earplugs, because you go deaf in there. With goggles and a respirator. So then you haven't even gone in yet. So that do all that. So you go in there. Well, you can see maybe 100 crates. Your eyes can see that far. 200, 300, 400, thousands of hogs in all these crates. And the screaming is just like it's deafening even with earplugs. And the respirator was on me 100% of the time. But for days, my nose was running. I was congested from having breathed all that nitrogenous waste that's in the air. It's ammonia. You're breathing ammonia. Well,
and
guess what?
Why are the animals screaming, Will, do you think?
They're in pain. They're in misery. Their pigs are smarter than some humans. They're certainly smarter than dogs. So of all the animals to torture, a pig is really not a good one, and I don't know why it's done. California, this is breaking news. They just passed a law. You can't have hogs in crates anymore. Crate-free hogs. This is in California only, and this is in the last 3 days. So in our newspaper is filled with hog farmers like, "Whoa, we'll go broke, and it's dangerous. You're putting us out there with these dangerous animals if they're not in a crate," which is total not true.
Yeah. Thank you for censoring yourself. This is a clean show. So, you're like, it's total not true.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you know what I was thinking though.
Yeah.
But so anyway, what I did on this farm is I said, well, we have to get them out of the crates, and we have to do, I put them on a natural program. No antibiotics, cut off all the antibiotics. So the guys called me the next day and said, yeah, we had 7 more deaths today. I was okay. called me the next day. He said, well, we had 5 more deaths today. So about the third day, this guy was these guys are desperate. They're dying. They're going bankrupt. A lifetime, generations. He said, I thought you said you could help me. And I said, well, yeah, I can, but you were falling off a cliff when I met you. And of course, you're going to go down a little further before we start going back up. Well, it was the third or fourth day. They only lost 1 piggy, and then they never lost another one after that. So these farmers now have cut down to 450 sows, mama sows. They have the boars. They do natural breeding now. And they're making more money than they made when they had their average is about 1,200 sows. They were in the thousands. This is concrete city. This is like the airport. It's concrete. Mm. Well, what are we going to do with all this concrete? I go, well, that's a good question. Do you have a bulldozer? So we're starting to dig some of it up. But they're now producing hogs for these humane certified, like Nyman pork. Actually, that's the one they're producing for, and they get such a premium for their meat that they're actually making more money. Pigs sell for about 60 cents a pound now. So you do all this work, you're all day long, you're cleaning up hogs and feeding them. You get 60 cents a pound, and it was as low as 11 cents just a year or two ago. So now they're getting several dollars a pound for this valuable pork. They're so happy, and they don't have to live in this hellhole anymore. But that was a rare exception for success. And I hope to do more of that. But again, they don't like my version of what they're doing. And in the newspaper this week, there's all these editorials. It's like, well, our pigs are not, what would they do anyway? Which reminds me of a story. A New Yorker was driving through the countryside, and he saw this farmer holding a pig up to an apple tree. And the pig was munching on the apples. And the New Yorker was just so curious. He said, why are you doing that? You can save so much time just by letting the pig eat them off the ground. And the farmer said, well, what's time to a pig? So, it's kind of like that dichotomy. And the only reason they get away with it, to answer your question, is that people don't know. They don't know how bad it is. There's no way you could even get in, for one. They're so terrified that a PETA rep will come in and take videos of their, and it's another sign you see on factory farms is no videotaping. So a big sign, no videotaping.
Wow. Okay. Sign. So these factory farms that with thousands and thousands of animals are creating contamination because they don't know what to do with the waste. They're not using the waste as fertilizer, but it's running off into streams and bays and things like that.
You don't want to live within 10 miles of one of these factories.
Oh, right. They stink. Right. And then number 2, they're mistreating the animals. So, and then from what I understand as well, when the animals are in that stressful condition their whole life, then when we partake of that animal, whether it's fat, which may be loaded with toxins, or it's muscle meat, we're going to get some of that energy and that cortisol and all those things that are, not to mention the ingredients that are in vaccines. And that takes me to that question, Will. So